Hello and welcome to the Spiritual Life Coach Podcast. I am your host, Erica Haynes. On this podcast, we'll use spiritual truth and spiritual tools to lighten up your challenges. Chapter 31, The Final Vision. Learning is change. Salvation does not seek to use a means as yet too alien to your thinking to be helpful, nor to make the kinds of change you could not recognize. Concepts are needed while perception lasts, and changing concepts is salvation's task, for it must deal in contrasts, not in truth, which has no opposite and cannot change. In this world's concepts are the guilty, bad, and the good are innocent, and no one here but holds a concept of himself in which he counts the good to pardon him the bad, nor does he trust the good in anyone, believing that the bad must lurk behind. This concept emphasizes treachery, and trust becomes impossible. Nor could it change while you perceive the bad in you. You could not recognize your evil thoughts as long as you see value in attack. You will perceive them sometimes, but will not see them as meaningless. And so they come in fearful form, with content still concealed, to shake your sorry concept of yourself and blacken it with still another crime. You cannot give yourself your innocence, for you are too confused about yourself. Let me stop reading for a second and make a case for emotional insight, which is identifying the emotions you're feeling and processing the energy of those emotions, because a lot of times they are going to be negative, so that you have more of a container for the light and the good that is the truth. The most recent podcast I put out, as well as podcast 17, both teach you how to do that. What we just read speaks to what I said in the last podcast, that most people don't usually know what they're feeling. The part that we just read that said, you could not recognize your evil thoughts as long as you see value in attack. You will perceive them sometimes, but will not see them as meaningless. And so they come in fearful form, with content still concealed, to shake your sorry concept of yourself and blacken it with still another crime. That speaks to walking around and getting triggered and not even knowing what has gotten activated within you. And by doing that, you recognize that it's in you and that there's something there for you to clear. Potentially that you have this energy which is concealed before examination of this trigger is actually what's attracting this trigger to you and giving you the opportunity to clear what the Course in Miracles is saying is really your own guilt or your own idea of badness or your own sense of shame, or at least that's what it's going to turn into, that we first often become aware of by seeing it projected outwards. And often we feel bad, but we think it's because of what happened outside of us. And when we leave it there, we still have this badness inside of us or this negative energy that we haven't processed. Further, these multi-step processes that I'm teaching about separating the thought from the feeling and then feeling the feeling, that all gives you this awareness of what is an evil thought, what is a negative feeling. And within that context, here's a thought, here's a feeling, here's a supposed justified attack on someone else. Within the context of exploring all of these different pieces, you're connecting with the truth. The context itself of being able to part and parcel these aspects of experience through self-awareness and introspection, the context itself is truth. The context itself is God. That is the light. We hold all this within, truly. Because if you're saying, here is some badness I feel within me, here is some badness I have that project towards another person, here is a field of energy that I'm capable of clearing and releasing instead of being unconscious of and manifesting, or just feeling more negatively because the weight of this negativity I'm holding is pulling me down, and not being as open of a container to receive goodness because I'm containing too much BS within. What else would the context be? If you're sitting there and saying, here's the badness, here's the attack thought, here's the idea of evil, Not that you're saying it in that language, but that's really what we're doing. So what else could the context be but goodness and light and the truth of what we are, which is way more than a body having an interaction with another body or external experience that triggers us in some way. And now I'll continue reading because it does discuss that beyond the body aspect. And in the Course in Miracles, it's all about forgiving this in your brother for your own release. And that's what we'll talk about in this next part that I'm going to read. You could not recognize... No, wait. That's not where we are. Okay, so we did read, you cannot give yourself your innocence, for you are too confused about yourself. But should one brother dawn upon your sight as wholly worthy of forgiveness, then your concept of yourself is wholly changed. Your evil thoughts have been forgiven with his, because you let them all affect you not. No longer do you choose that you should be the sign of evil and of guilt in him. And as you give your trust to what is good in him, you give it to the good in you. In terms of concepts, it is thus you see him more than just a body. For the good is never what the body seems to be. The actions of the body are perceived as coming from the baser part of you, and thus of him as well. Let me just interrupt the reading real quick to say, as humans, we're some sort of hybrid between a spiritual being and an animal. We have a right brain that's a lot more aligned with our spirituality, and that will develop through spiritual practice as your intuition will increase and your ability to sense others and to be able to heal yourself and others. And the left brain is about logic and calculations, and it's also about staying alive and survival. And we have two hemispheres. We all have both. So in order to have a human body and a human experience, we need that animal aspect. I guess I'm just giving you another way to love yourself, to forgive yourself, because most of what you end up having to forgive yourself for is your animal aspects. It's something that you did when you were threatened. It's something that you did out of reactivity. Most of what we need to forgive in ourselves is our animal. So even if you don't always love your body, we've got to love that it's what's allowing us to survive, that we wouldn't be here without a body and that the body is very much not the spiritual truth. So see both and love the base one, as the Course in Miracles just called it, more. I would say love the fact that you have an animal body and that a lot of your errors come from the fact that we have to have that physiology to have this experience. Love that more in yourself and see it less in others. That's what I'm saying. Okay, let me get back to reading. By focusing upon the good in him, the body grows decreasingly persistent in your sight and will at length be seen as little more than just a shadow circling around the good. And this will be your concept of yourself. When you have reached the world beyond the sight your eyes alone can offer you to see. For you will not interpret what you see without the aid that God has given you. And in his sight, there is another world. I think that sums up the teachings for today. I hope that felt good to you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Much love and blessings going through your day today.
Work out, girl, I bet you like it when I stroke it like that. It's so good.